quite incredible. A little bit of background on ClassTag before we get started. ClassTag, for those of you who are new, is a free parent-teacher communication platform. And we are going to be partnering tonight with Impatico, which is also a free platform and connects folks in a very different way. So we're going to talk about that. A few administrative things before we get started and before we get into introductions. The topic for tonight is fostering empathy and friendship through virtual connections. Really quite amazing and important in a time like this. And if you want to add in the chat where you're from, what you teach, any bit of background, if you've used Impatico or ClassTag before, that'd be really interesting for us to share that background with us. And we also wanted to let you know that Impatico has generously donated a $50 gift card to Donors Choose. So we are going to be giving that randomly to someone in the chat who's participating in that chat and sharing your ideas. Let's start by kicking it off and introducing Travis, if you want to give us some background on your role at Impatico.
Sure. Thank you, Marcia, and thanks so much for having us here today. I am Travis Hardy, and I lead the programs team at Impatico, where I get to work very closely with teachers, work with partners to design our curriculum and activities, work very closely with our product team to collect feedback from teachers on the overall Impatico experience. But I will pass it off to Erica and Jess.
Jess, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi there, I'm Jess Papp. I'm a teacher in Canton, Connecticut. Up until this year, I taught kindergarten for many years at Cherry Brook Primary School. This year I swapped over to 5th grade at Canton Intermediate School, so it's all new to me. I was the Canton Public Schools Teacher of the Year of 2018, and I was a semi-finalist for the State of Connecticut Teacher of the Year the same year, and that's what brought me on this path to Impatico. I was lucky to get a fellowship last year through Impatico, so I'm very happy to be here to share my experience. Thank you.
Thanks, that's great. And Erica, we'd love to hear from you.
Hi, y'all. My name is Erica Rodriguez. I live in Texas. I'm a school counselor, about 15, 16 years of experience as a special education teacher. And one of those things, because of the work that I've created, the work was recognized by the Texas Department of Health and Texas Health Foundation. But my experience has been with kids with severe emotional behavioral disorders. And through that, I eventually ended to where I am now at an elementary school. And a coworker, another principal or a principal asked if I would apply to be part of Impatico. And that was really, I'm glad that they did that because the experience for our campus was really great.
That's incredible. And what an impressive lineup of folks we have tonight in great company. So let's kick things off. I would love to hear a little bit from Travis. And if you can share more background on Impatico and what it is for those folks who are new to Impatico.
Sure. So Impatico is a free platform that connects classrooms and homes around the world through a combination of live video chat and activities that are designed to bolster empathy and social emotional learning among children of different communities and backgrounds. We currently focus on children ages 6 to 11, so mostly the elementary space, since we've seen that children in that age range are especially receptive and open to meeting new people and internalizing new experiences. And given everything going on in the world between the pandemic, conversations around social justice, and the current political climate, we really feel right now is an especially critical time for children to find connections with peers of different backgrounds, find a shared humanity, and develop a strong sense of empathy together. And so we facilitate these connections between both educators and caregivers, so their students and children have that opportunity to meet peers of different backgrounds and practice social emotional learning skills that are critical not only to fostering a more empathetic world, but also to supporting one another during trying times. And in addition to providing meaningful learning opportunities, our hope is also to create really joyful digital experiences that are fun for kids to explore with peers and that leave them with positive memories.
That's great. I actually first came across the Impatico name because I worked with TEDx Philadelphia, and Kind was always a big donor in those programs. And so if you're new to that, the Kind bar is connected with Impatico. That was really interesting to me. Can you expand a little bit on the social emotional learning side of things, specifically, why does it help with resilience and self-awareness?
Sure. So by reinforcing skills like perspective taking or cognitive empathy, respectful communication, critical thinking, and cooperation, our hope is that children who are exposed to these experiences will grow up to become more empathetic adults who are better prepared to live in an increasingly diverse and globally minded world. And especially now, when we live in a world that feels more divided than ever, these types of experiences can empower educators to partner in mutually beneficial ways and encourage children to be curious, ask questions, and open themselves up to new perspectives, particularly across lines of difference.
Mm-hmm. And, can you touch on a little bit more on that note? How can we use Impatico, maybe even in more detail, like how do teachers, how do caregivers, how can we use Impatico to really, create these meaningful opportunities for students and children, especially given everything that's going on these days?
Yeah. Our goal is to make these types of connections possible and as seamless as possible through our free online platform and provide all the resources that teachers might need to facilitate these types of virtual connections between partner classrooms or homes, including free lesson plans and activity ideas or prompts, resources with tips on facilitating online dialogue and helping students respectfully navigate their differences, suggestions for aligning Impatico experiences to any standards or curriculum requirements, and any needed technical support for the video exchanges. But that said, the most impactful and meaningful moments often come as the relationships between classrooms develop over time on our platform. And the friendships start to build organically among the students, and teachers guide their classes through collective projects or support one another through really challenging times. And that's why we were excited to include Erica and Jess here today and share some of their story and what Impatico actually looked like in their classrooms and what it meant for them.
That's great. Actually, so in a second, I'll get Jessica and Erica just to briefly reintroduce yourselves again, but I have to say, the Impatico site is incredible. It's very user friendly. It looks really easy to set up. And I mean, I just wish that I had this as a resource when I was, in the classroom and even as a student. It's incredible. So let's get practical and let's help our teachers, with all the things that they've got going on. And Jessica and Eric, I'd love to hear from you and how you use Impatico in your learning environments.
So we had a very unique experience last year working together with this interesting school year we had. We started off with Impatico, and you're right, Marcia, it's very user-friendly. I didn't know much about it before I jumped into it, and we were able to very easily find our way using that site. I think the best part, and Eric and I were speaking about this, the best part about it is not just that you can connect visually, but the lessons that they suggest you use really help to build the sense of community very quickly. Eric, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about how we started off, but I know instantly my students, Erica sent us a nice slideshow all about Waco, Texas, and my students sent them a slideshow all about Canton, Connecticut, and we learned a lot about each other's communities right off the bat.
Which was a lot of fun. In our community here, the poverty is really high. It's about 27% in this area, which is much higher than the state. And so going into it, I knew that the experiences that our students had, for many of them, the idea that you could speak to somebody across a screen. This is prior to the pandemic, of course. The idea that you could have those conversations and it was in real time and it wasn't a YouTuber and that the person could respond to them right then and there. That was huge. And the Empatico provided a framework for us to ask really good questions and to lead that conversation. And so, Jess and I were just able to build from that very first meeting from there.
A really strong community. We shared, Erica sent leaves, beautiful little cutouts of leaves, and we wrote all about our students. Each student wrote their little story on each one of who they were and their favorite things. And we sent them all to each other. And Erica was able to make a big a wall full of all the leaves and made it like we're one big group of students. The students cheered so loudly every time we connected. They were so fun. They loved getting up in front of the camera and talking across the world, they felt like, across the country. And what we found is that they were really connecting deeply right off the bat. I think the fact that Empatico's desire is to spark empathy in students really went along the same lines of what Eric and I wanted to do. And, I think at first I thought I would have to guide students a little more in the idea of doing a community service project or a community project. And really, it was so easy. The students just immediately started coming up with these great ideas. And I know Erica had a similar experience with being so impressed by students instantly feeling this empathy for people in need in their community and in our community. And so what we tried to do is find something that both of our communities struggled with. And pretty quickly we realized that, and actually through the students, we realized food insecurity and hunger was an issue that we found in both communities.
Yes. And one of the things that really impressed me, sparked by the conversations and the lessons, is that the kids on their own shared things about their own living situation. And part of what we do in those lessons is to problem solve. And you identify what are the challenges in your community, and the kids themselves were able to identify multiple things. And through that, it sparked that conversation. Well, what are things that we can do together? And Jess and I, our two classes did do a service project, but prior to that, because of the conversations that was sparked from the lessons, in October, we had something called Socktober, and we had a sock drive. And the kids, and it was from the things that they said, where some of them had lived in a shelter, and they recognized that that was a huge need. And so that was the beginning of us having these conversations and building on and seeing the empathy happening right then in that classroom. And that was really amazing to me to see as an educator and as a counselor, and just to be really excited that these things were happening. And I didn't feel like I was having to do a lot. I feel like just by sparking that conversation with Jess's class and those lessons, it was like these little steps, like a ripple effect. So by the end of the year, we ended up with this much larger service project.
Right. And the ages of our students ranged from 5 to 8, 5 to 9. And so these are little kids, but we found that with, our guidance and the tools that are available to us, they were able to really connect on a very deep level. It was really amazing. So our food drive, we decided to go with soup because Erica thought that we would call it the Super Bowl, and we would do it right around the time of the Super Bowl, which was awesome. And we in Canton, we have an organization called Gifts of Love, and we every year at our school try to make up a collection of all different items. So I said I would be the soup person this year, and Erica was lucky to find an organization near her. Erica, what was the name of the organization you collected?
Caritas. It's called Caritas. It was a food pantry.
And so what we did is we decided as both classes to create a goal, and we set our goal really high at 100 items. We were hoping to get around 100 items of soup, and after about 2 or 3 weeks. So we both had our students reach out to their families and write a little note. And we had parents in my classroom, soup cans started rolling in the backpacks and packs of soup and everything else. And my students were very proud to be able to give to our community and to help people who maybe experience that food insecurity. Some of my students come from a community nearby Canton where we do have a lot of families that have food insecurity issues as well. So I think it was very close to home for a lot of people. So we had soup rolling in. So we checked in with Erica's group, and they hadn't had as much success initially.
No. And it's one of the things that I worried about prior, because, how do you ask a community of people that don't have very much to bring in something as important as food? And so I really wasn't sure how we would do. And so I wasn't really surprised by the fact that we didn't have very many cans of food that were coming in. And it kind of, it touched me deeply to see that those families that did bring in were families that I knew they don't have very much. Mm-hmm. They went in probably in their own pantry and brought in what they could. But we just didn't have anything. And so I had told Jess, hey, we're just not going to be able to meet this goal. And then she offered something really amazing for us. And I'll let her tell that story.
So I decided to reach out to my students and let them know that our we call them our partners. Our partner class in Texas was having a harder time collecting soup than we were. And so I asked them if they would each bring in one extra item, or maybe $1 or $2 each, that we could then send on to Texas. And immediately they were so excited. I mean, kindergartners are always very excited, but they were so excited and so inspired. So they all set their jaws, and they got down and they wrote their parents a note and said, can we please give $1 to send some soup to Waco? And within 2 days, we had enough money to ship, around 120 items of soup directly to your school in Waco, which was so touching and so amazing. And my students would cheer, and we would talk to Erica, and her students would be cheering. Mm-hmm. It was a beautiful, inspiring thing, and something that touched me deeply as a student that comes from an underserved community. He actually brought in $20 from his family, and they said it was very important to them that they gave back to other people that are in communities like that. So Erica and I could not believe it. We were floored.
Mm-hmm. Our whole campus. And I remember getting the phone call, hey, you need to come to the front office. You have all of these Amazon boxes here and these massive boxes full of soup. It was really awesome. And to be able to show the kids, and for them to know that somebody that they've never met other than through the screen and their families, for somebody else to take interest and to care and to want to be part of our goal, even though we don't really know who they are other than the connection that we've made.
Somebody we never would have met if it wasn't for Impatico. And something that kind of hit me recently was the timing of it. Was 2 weeks before COVID closed down, started closing down things in all of our communities, and less than a month before it closed down all the schools where a lot of our students, and I know, Erica, a lot of your students get their food from. So together between both of our classes, it was over 360 items of soup going to our local communities. So it did hit me. I hope that somebody found some warmth in that meal that our students were able to bring in. And I know how proud my students were for that.
I love this. I love the story. Yeah. Sorry, Erica, for cutting you off. We have Erica in the chat who was just saying, so inspiring. She loves your story. And I think we're all quite touched right now. But please feel free to continue.
Well, we just had such a great experience together, and I know that our year got cut a little bit short, Erica, but I know that my students will absolutely bring this forward. I heard from a lot of parents. I asked parents to give me their feedback on this experience, and the only negative feedback I had was that it had to end. They were very upset that we had to end our partnership because we were out of school. I did find that people were so impressed by the technology. They were so impressed their students knew where Waco, Texas was. We looked at the map. People love that because how often do you get out a map anymore and find a path from one place to another? And I just love that now these kids in my class say that they have friends in Texas. I think that's really a beautiful thing.
And I was touched by the stories that they shared and by the fact that, they didn't know going in what to expect. And they now know, oh, somebody lives in Connecticut and they like spaghetti just like I do. They like pizza just like I do. Jojo Bo's. Yes. So those things that were shared.
There was a Target in Texas and in Connecticut. They could not believe it. Yeah.
From a practical standpoint, how does day one look? Like, how do you actually go from going to the Impatico site to connecting to this other teacher across the country?
So we were lucky. We both being in the part of the Impatico Fellowship Program, we were actually linked up with each other. But I'm sure Travis could tell you what other teachers were able to do, but we were so lucky. We got linked up with each other. We went on the website. Right in the website, there's a chat feature there. So Erica and I could send each other messages. It would help us with planning the time change, which was very tricky for me.
Yes.
I'd be saying 2:00 my time or your time. And so that was amazing, that feature. And then right there on the webpage, there's all access to all the different lesson plans and ideas. And they gave you as much or as little leeway as you needed. So we could follow the exact script. They had lessons that you would do before you ever went on with your other class. So things that we did ahead of time, like Erica said, talking just to our classroom, things that we may not have gotten so deep into without that. So the lesson plans are very well thought out, and you don't have to do everything. There was a lot of information on there. You could kind of choose your avenue of what you really wanted to work on. So on my end, it was very user friendly, and really, especially that time change, it really was thoughtfully planned out for people like me. Travis, could you say what maybe a teacher would find coming on if they weren't already linked up with someone?
Yeah, it's very similar in terms of all the features you described. There would just be a first step where a teacher would share some information that we would use as part of our matching algorithm to pair classes that are a good fit with one another. So that includes the age of your students to make sure that students are close in age, your location, so that you're at least 300 miles apart, your availability during a typical school week to have this live video connection, and then like just shared, we convert those time zones for you so that you're aligned across those schedules and time zones, which activities you're interested in to help fit within your curriculum requirements, and then the language that you want to have the exchanges in, English, Spanish, or both.
Brilliant. Travis, in a minute, do you want to show us a screen share and give us a bit more detail of how that could look? I mean, I'm really curious also from going to Impatico site, it sounds like a lot of folks might do a full class screen share. How does that look in a virtual learning environment? Can caregivers also access, homeschoolers access? Are there any restrictions that way?
I can share a little about something we have planned for the next couple of weeks and to stay tuned for. We are planning to launch Impatico virtual classrooms, which will be a new way for educators and students to participate in Impatico exchanges remotely from home or from any other location with internet access, so students can continue to explore SEL opportunities, make new friends, and connect and socialize with peers around the world, even when a lot of schools are in remote learning environments right now. And in terms of caregivers and families, we, over the summer, launched a new section on our website called Impatico at Home that has some student-facing activities that we call bite-sized Impatico skills, so things like perspective taking and respectful communication that students can do on their own to keep reinforcing some of these key SEL skills.
That's great. So within ClassTag, there's a section called Quick Links. It's basically a spot where teachers who use our platform can save, 5 resources that they use frequently. That would be a great spot to save some of the pieces that you're sharing with us today. If we do want to go to screen share, we'll do that in a minute. But first, kind of as we just start wrapping up, Erica, Jess, is there any last things that you wanted to share with us? Anything, could be 1 or 2 key things that you think you'd really want teachers to know or parents to know as they head into this new school year?
For me, one of the most impactful things from this experience is just to remember that it doesn't have to be fancy. That really good things can happen by using a simple, and I know technology probably isn't simple, but it doesn't have to be a big thing, and it doesn't have to be a big project that stresses you out for there to be a meaningful connection between other people and other communities, or even just within your classroom. So don't stress out, use what you have fun, and as the counselor is now saying, and just listen and see, and then kind of let those conversations that the kids are sharing, let that guide you to the next step.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yes.
So something I've always thought is that little kids can do really big things.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times people think, but they're just little kids. And I think given the right opportunity and the right set of tools, and I think kids can really make change. And we saw that in our communities, that the teeny tiny people made a big change. So don't underestimate the little kids in your life. And don't be afraid to try something big with them. You'll be surprised.
Agree. Thanks so much. And Travis, do you want to share as we wrap up?
Sure. So I will just share my screen.
While Travis is doing that, as a person who's just watching this, and those of you that know me, I'm Sam from ClassTag. Jess and Erica, did you guys come in expecting you were going to get this great relationship, to network with teachers for helping your students at the same time?
No, it's been awesome. It's a great benefit to the whole experience.
Right. And it was overwhelming at first, thinking about, oh boy, I hope I'm going to be doing this right. But it was just so well thought out through the Impatico side that it was seamless. Like Erica said, I overthought it a little in the beginning, and then it was really an easy way. And I love that now I have a new friend in Texas that I can bounce ideas off of, and hopefully she'll do the same for me.
That's awesome. And we'll go ahead and share Travis's screen.
Great. So this is the Impatico homepage at impatico.org. Teachers can go here to sign up for a free account and be matched with another classroom. I'll just give you a quick snapshot of what it looks like once 2 partner educators have been matched with one another and what that shared space looks like. In this case, you have teacher A and teacher B who are matched together, and they have all of the collaboration tools they need, the chat that Jess mentioned earlier to help the teachers lesson plan with one another, file sharing as well, and then the shared lesson times, again, to help you see kind of what some of those differences, those time differences are to help with the scheduling piece. And then quickly, just an overview of the teacher resources. We have a number of free lesson plans or virtual exchange activity ideas. A lot of classrooms like to start with our Get to Know You activity, which is a very simple step-by-step guide for that first interaction between the 2 classes to help break the ice. And then we have a number of other resources for teachers, just some more focus on logistics of how you might set up your classroom for a virtual exchange, letters to send home to families to talk a little bit about what Impatico is and what kids will be doing. And then some more kind of targeted SEL content that you can do within your own classroom, and how you might adapt this experience for younger students or for students with special needs.
Brilliant. All right, I'll invite Sam back in. There she is. All right, we got the full package. We've got the story, we've got the real life example, we've got the website. I can see this as being a real time saver for teachers in a way to meaningfully connect with other folks across the country and even in other countries. So I couldn't be more happy that you're here today sharing your story and sharing your resource. Thanks so much, everybody. Sam, anything else that you wanted to add?
Just as, for those of you that listen to us pretty often, I'm a virtual teacher. I wish I had known about Impatico a little bit earlier as a teacher, because this is such a great way to build relationships during, virtual learning. There's nothing built in for virtual learning for developing friendships. It's a lot harder for students to, make those connections. And what a great way to do that. But showing students that you don't have to be like location-wise close. You can still be close with each other from far away. That's awesome.
All right, thanks everybody. Let's wave and we'll see you next time.